smoke the dizzy, but we can always share some disease. It's just a cup in time. This song doesn't have to run. Life's all of us, not every moment we can be feeling fine. I wanna share a moment, just a second if you will, maybe even a cup of thrill. We could share this performance. It's tea time, come sit with me.
Well, welcome, guys. That's right. Miss Liz is in the house, and I have a famous opera singer in the back, and she's also going to talk about a spy thriller. That's right. We go from opera music to spy books, and we're going to talk about her tea. And her tea is even a different type of tea than you all expect. So we're fighting for justice and peace. That's the tea we're serving tonight with Kay Sparling's in the house. So before we get started, we're going to get everybody over to Miss Liz's YouTube channel, Facebook, LinkedIn, TikTok, all of those platforms, and get the little like, subscribe, follow, and get these tea times out there to everyone so that we can make a difference with one cup of tea at a time. We do not have a beverage in this house. We serve a different type of tea. We serve real life stories. So let's get the disclaimer out there and let's get Kay's introduction and let's get Kay in here and let's spill some tea. And then let's get a little bit of chuckles and giggles because we were doing that just before we went live. Disclaimer for Miss Liz's Tea Time live show. Miss Liz's Tea Time is a global platform dedicated to sharing real life stories, diverse perspectives, and meaningful conversations that inspire awareness, healing, and connection. I, Miss Liz, is going live using StreamYard. Before leaving a comment during the live broadcast, please grant StreamYard permission to display your name at StreamYard.com. Please be advised that all the content brought forward during any Tea Time show is presented in good faith. However, discussions may include opinions, beliefs, and perspectives that do not necessarily represent the views of Miss Liz or the Tea Time platform. Information shared by guests is based on their own experiences and is perceived to be accurate at the given time of airing. All guests, viewers, and participants are responsible for using their own judgment when considering any action or decisions that may relate to these discussions. Some episodes may cover sensitive topics, including but not limited to trauma, abuse, grief, mental health, and other emotionally triggering subjects. Listeners' and viewers' discretion is strongly advised. Tea Time with Miss Liz is an open discussion forum designed to offer insight, inspire awareness, and create connection. It is not a substitute for professional, medical, legal, or therapeutical advice. If you require professional support, please seek assistance from qualified professionals or trusted resources in your area. If you have any questions regarding this disclaimer or the content of this discussion, you are welcome to contact me, aka Miss Liz, directly at my email at bookingmissliz@gmail.com or visit Linktree at Miss Liz's Tea Times. By choosing to participate in, comment on, or view these live shows, you acknowledge and accept this disclaimer. Your participation is entirely voluntary. I, Miss Liz, welcomes you to join the conversations with an open heart, and if at any time you feel this platform is not right for you, I respect those wishes and decision and welcome you back whenever you are ready. Tea Time with Miss Liz is serving truth and awareness one cup at a time. And let me give you a little bit on my guest. Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome back to Tea Time with Miss Liz. Tonight, I'm delighted to welcome Kay Sparling to the table, a woman whose life work is as dynamic as her voice. Kay's journey, the voice of a lifetime, music, meaning, and memories, celebrates a life steeped in song, but her talents reach far beyond the stage. She not only captivates storytelling through music, but also the author of the thrilling novel Mission Thaw, a spy thriller, adding yet another incredible chapter to her creative belt. Kay's life reminds us that it's never too late to reinvent ourselves, to follow a new melody, or to put a lifelong dream on paper. So grab your cup, settle in, and join me as we dive into music, the memories, and the intrigue behind the stories Kay Sparling has to share with us tonight. Let me get Kay in here and let's spill some tea together. Welcome, Kay.
Welcome. I'm to you too. I'm very glad to be here. I just have to say, I love your theme song. I love that little country thing you got going on. Excellent. And believe it or not, my book has a theme song too. I'll tell you about it later. So
Oh, well, look
yeah,
at, I'm going to
it's
write that down.
yeah. If you go to ksparlingbooks.com, and you go to media, you're going to see like a graphic illustration of Caitlin putting her leg up in a ball gown and putting on a thigh holster, for a gun. And it
Yeah.
says, "I bet you I'm the only, belle at the opera ball that's got this accessory." Well, right underneath that, it'll say there's a track, about a 3-minute track, and it's called "I'm a Warrior." And one of my good friends that writes a lot of Broadway theater music, composed it, and one of my students sang it. So,
Oh, well,
yeah,
look at that. I'll
it's
check that out this tea time. And anybody that's listening tonight or watching a replay, check that song out. Yeah, my little intro is my son who wrote that song for me. And then
that's excellent.
he got music put to it and the songs and all that. And I like the little twist in it. And I like how it says, we're not always okay with ourselves, and we can share tea
Yeah,
together.
yeah, yeah.
So can you tell me a little bit before we went live? We were chuckling in the back, we were giggling because she told me something that I just got to watch myself, or she's gonna kill me. But Kate,
Oh no, I won't kill you.
but Kate, let's go back down that rabbit hole where it's a little safer. Who was Kay as a little girl, and who is Kay now?
Okay. Well, as a little girl, and my mother loved to tell this story, and a lot of other people do. I was 5 years old, and my parents took me to see Sound of the Music, in the theater. Of course, you know how big that felt, being 5. And during the intermission, because back then they would have an intermission. This was like you would dress up to go to the theater. That's how old I am, okay? And it had been only out of about 5 years when I saw it. And at the intermission, everybody was worried that, oh, can the little 5-year-old stay awake? And of course, I was like, and I told my parents as we were standing in the concession line, I'm going to do that. And my mom looked down and she went, "You going to do what, honey?" And she's looking around. I'm like, "No, I'm going to do that." And I point inside the theater. I'm going to be like that little girl. I'm going to stage and sing and dance. And my mom was like, "Oh, well, okay." 2 years later, by then, I am singing church, wherever, school, getting all the souls, little kid, sounding like probably at least double her age. And so my mom puts me in we were farmers. So my mom puts me in the county fair Little Miss program, like it's like a little beauty contest, but you had to have talent. And I sang for it. And you're not going to believe this, but afterwards, we're going around riding the rides and stuff. And a man approaches my parents and says, "I heard your daughter this evening sing." And he was visiting some relatives. He was from St. Louis. He's like, "I am a scout for the St. Louis Muni Opera, and I would like for your daughter to, yeah. Talk about karma. I would like your daughter to audition for the smallest Von Trapp child, Gretel." And my parents were just blown away because they remembered what I had said 2 years before that. So I started professionally singing when I was 7. I was a Broadway singer for 20 years before I even thought about opera. Yeah.
Wow,
And
congratulations.
so
That's a
that's the
young
kind of little
age.
kid I was. Yeah, it was. And the cool thing about my parents is I would get all kinds of offers as I grew older, but they would not take me out of school, and they would, a lot of students that are, well, performers that are student age, they'll be tutored, but my parents wanted me to have a normal life. So they said, "No, you can only do it when you're not in school in the summers or, whenever. Otherwise, you got to be in school productions." So I did that. And as I got older, it was like, all right, by the time you're, 15, you've got enough money to go to college, So that was really cool. And, I didn't think twice what I was going to go into. It was going to be the performing arts.
Well, I like that because you
So
said it at
yeah,
5 years old, and at 7 you were already scouted and in the business. I like that. For all
got
my
my
young
first gig.
listeners,
Yeah.
yeah, for all my young listeners out there, see your dreams can start at any age.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be in a big city because this was in a very small town in a in a Midwest state, and yet there it was, that's how show business is, it'll find you. And another funny story is uh we finally built a bigger house and I had my own room, and I asked for Christmas if I could have a map of Manhattan. And then in 8th grade, I had push pins in every major Broadway theater, in Manhattan. And I
Wow.
was going to sing there. And yeah, I was just this determined kid, really driven and a perfectionist, and, work and practice very, very hard, and to the point where it's like going back and forth every Saturday to Chicago from where I was, which was, you're talking about a 4-hour drive halfway through Illinois to, go to voice lessons, in Chicago every Saturday. Yeah. So a lot of commitment there for a young person, I think, Yeah. And
Well, and
nobody
Kate,
ever pushed me. My parents would have never done that.
Kate, what got you into the spy thriller? Like you went from opera to spy thriller. Well, let's get into the spy thriller, and then we're going to go back into the music. We're going to jump all over the place tonight with you.
Okay. Well, the spy thriller was I am an opera singer, and I spent a lot of time overseas, and I spent a lot of it during the Cold War. And mostly because I got involved with singing with the Catholic Church as well as opera houses, I got involved in a whole refugee movement that was happening after the USSR let, let go of all those countries, because they had no jobs, no government, so they started just fleeing into the West. Well, I would happen to be in Vienna, and that was one of the places that a lot of those, was boring, and that was the closest once you got into a Western country, meaning Austria. And I got involved in the plight of these people. They were on the edge of town in these huge tents, and I was first asked to provide entertainment, raise money with the, rich opera aficionados of the city, try to get donations because they were very, very low in supplies. And I just learned a whole lot about it. And the next thing you know, I'm being asked to do things for spies, you know. And so there were a lot of spies around, CIA, MI6. And so therefore I learned a lot of everything that was going on, and got pretty involved and saw a lot of bad stuff. So if you want to ask where the book came from, it was actually a PTSD project at a Navy base. I was given art therapy, music therapy, and and of course talk therapy. And then through the talk therapy, that psychiatrist said, "Why don't you start writing this down in a journal?" And I did, and I handed it in to him and his intern, and they were both like, "Oh, you gotta make this a book," And so that's where it literally came from. Then I learned, I had to go to writing classes at UW-Madison, and learned the hard way in a lot of things. Took James Patterson's master class, and just kept working at learning how to craft a thriller. I had all the facts. I just didn't know how to craft it so that it would be a page turner, and, less is more and all that stuff. How do you write really fast paced action? And after the 5th draft, I had something. So it took me a while. Life got in the way a couple of times, but it was a challenge, and I'm glad I did it. I never thought I'd be a published author, but here I am killing it. So you never know what's gonna happen
Be
next.
careful with this woman.
Yeah. You might as well tell them the joke. If you ask me if I'm Caitlin Stewart, I'm going to say, well, I tell you, but then I'd have to kill you, So that's
and
what
I
she's
said that she was
about.
right. And I said before we went live, I said, "Oh, here we go. Jeff Downing is in the house. Ackman, I'm going to kill you." The puppet, the little Ackman, I kill you. But
so,
Kay, I'm going to bring up the book. I want you to describe to the audio listeners that may not see our video right now. Explain the cover and all that. So I'm going to bring it up, the colors, what's on the cover, and how you got the cover and all that made. So I'm just going to pop that up. Let me get that into here, and then we can share with our viewers and listeners out there what we're actually talking about so they can see the book for themselves. There we go.
Yeah. Okay. So how that worked is I had a vision, and of course, my publisher had something to talk about that too. And so what they said to me was like, we would like you to give us 3 ideas, and we'll work on that, and then we'll do some mock-ups, and we'll find out which one you're leaning towards, and then we'll keep tweaking that. And I picked this one because I think it shows, I liked it that it's her back, and she's looking out on the cityscape of Vienna. And, it's sort of like Caitlin against the world, which if you read my book lots of times, that's the way it works. And I love the way that he put the jagged ice under the word thaw, because the thaw represents the last of the Cold War. If this mission works, the Berlin Wall will come down. And so I like the way that the jagged ice is starting to melt there. And I like the blues. I think it shows suspense and kind of that time in the late 80s. Yes, Vienna is a beautiful city, but you have to remember there was a neo-Nazi that was their prime minister. It was a dark time. Okay, not as dark as East Germany, but pretty dark. And so I think those muted blues and grays kind of represent that, just a kind of a desperate, dark period in the history. Yeah.
I like the colors, and I like that you described the cover of the book, because sometimes when we look at the cover, we don't understand the cover, right? And that's why I like to get the authors to describe their covers and the little story behind it. And I like that her back is turned, because that shows power, right? It shows that this is a powerful woman who went through a lot of stuff and the world against her, right?
Absolutely. And, I think that one thing we have to kind of sympathize with her about is that she just goes over to be, she wins a Fulbright scholarship, and, but little did she know she was being vetted in graduate school in the United States for 2 years. They had a specific thing they needed an opera singer to do. And so she goes over and she thinks she's just going to be doing what she planned on doing, learning all that the apprenticeship can teach her, and, the culture. She wants to just, get all of her languages up and all. And little does she know, that before she can even start the apprenticeship, she goes to language school just to kind of wipe off her German a little bit. And, they come to her within, weeks of her arriving. And, it's such a shock, and she's not prepared. I mean, she's been a singer all of her life, and she grew up on a farm. So I mean, yeah, when they approach her, and that's in the first chapter, you know, you have to pinch yourself because you realize, how would it feel to be her right now? They actually apprehend her and throw her in a back of a Mercedes and take her to a park. And they all sit across from her and say, okay, this is what we need. And, you've been highly vetted and, we really believe you're the right person to do this. Can you do this for us? At the same time, you're going to be an opera singer because that's your cover. And we need a very, very young, beautiful, prima donna. It can't just be a good singer. It's got to be a prima donna because you have to get the attention of a very powerful man that is pretty much banking the Vienna State Opera right now. And so you've got to, get his attention, want him to mentor you, and get him to allow you to infiltrate his society, which ends up being this huge cartel for human trafficking and even dirty bombs. And so a lot of pressure is put on Caitlin. She's considered a high-profile spy, which means that, she's not hiding in a hole somewhere trying not to be noticed. It's just the opposite. She wants to be noticed by everybody, and that's actually her cover. No one knows that story behind of what she's trying to do.
And
what
that's
she's trying to get
usually the way
them
it
done.
is, right, Caitlin? And Kay, that's the way it is, right? Is they want you to be seen because then it's the distraction, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, who's going to think, that an opera singer is, actually a spy and trying to get intel from you and plant bugs all over your place, I mean, it's, no one's going to expect that because, she was there legitimately, she legitimately made that apprenticeship. And she is the best. And so she's going to be asked to sing at the balls, the opera ball, the fundraisers. She's going to be asked to go to this high echelon of society and, expect to, go with the jet setters. And she's ready to do that because of what she already manicured herself for international opera. So she's got the clothes, she's got the manners, she knows what a shrimp fork is, that kind of thing. And so she can walk in there and just be herself, and nobody's going to know.
Oh, did I lose you for a second?
Yeah. I don't know what you said. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. We had a little glitch. That's the virtual world, right? They have control over us. They're watching us. Like there's an eye spy here in the studio, and I'm just like, who's spying on me?
Well, we both went away for a little bit.
Right? We're just pause and wait. Stay safe.
Just wait till something happens.
Well, we had a couple questions that came in about the book, and I want to get those out to you, Kay. The first one was Mission Thaw is such a vivid title. What moment or image first thaw this story into your life? I'm guessing the word thaw has a lot to do with the story, right? It's breaking.
Absolutely. It is at the end of the Cold War. And in order for that to end, there is going to have to be a thaw because, it's just been frozen over for so long. And it is important to know that this mission had a great deal to do with the end of the Cold War. So I just thought throughout the book, it has so many different implications. Okay. One of them is her trainer, the MI6 Clive Matthews. He has been in the Cold War. He's much older than her since the very beginning of it almost. as soon as he got out of high school, and for decades. And to see him directing this mission at the end, when the outcome is the way they wanted, the last word of the book is thaw, because she's sitting there watching him lean back, and after years of being in the cold, so to speak, right, he can sit back and just allow the wondrous thaw to come through his body. So it's with characters, it's with history, it's with the politics, it's with the military, it's with everything.
And I think you're my first. I think you're my first spy. Yeah, okay, and I think you're my first spy thriller on Tea Time. So
Okay.
I'm gonna have to check your book out. I don't want you to.
Well, my book is you'll cry and you'll laugh. There's a lot of, Caitlin's hilarious, and one of her coworkers is a Dutch guy the CIA recruited, and the two of them are just hilarious. They keep everybody in chuckles, even in the worst of times. And there's a lot of bad times. It gets scary. It gets really scary for many people, many characters in this book, and also there are times when I'm graphic. I'm going to let you know what happened, particularly to those women refugees by the KGB, by the East Germans. Human trafficking is still happening, and it's happening a great deal more than it was then. Okay.
It's more in the view now.
Million people. Yes. It's everywhere. I live in a small college town in the Midwest, and not too many weeks ago, the front page of the paper, 7 men had been arrested for underage trafficking of girls. It's everywhere, so I'm not gonna put a little bow on it, and no, I'm gonna tell you exactly what happened. And if you don't like this stuff, and if you don't like it, then put your head in the sand. No, I'm kidding. If you don't like what I told a few of my friends' mothers, because they're like, we heard it has some bad stuff in it. And I'm like, yeah, it does. I'm not going to lie to you. But it's pretty short-lived, so just turn the page.
Pull your big girl panties up and read the book.
Yeah. Exactly. Because it's only in a few parts. But, yeah, you have to understand why this opera singer will put everything on hold, and most likely what could have been a bigger career to do this. Okay, so something has to drive her to say yes, doesn't it? And to stay in the game. Because at first they say, oh, if you could just get in there and plant some bugs and find out, blah, 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 she's going to just be an information gatherer. By the end, she's a full combat field agent, just because of the turns of events. So,
okay. Can I ask you a question?
Mm-hmm.
So is it like is it like Smith and Smith? The movie Smith and Smith?
No, I went to see that movie, and I guess they've redone it now. I haven't seen the new version. I went with some spies, and we were laughing our butts off at that movie. There's very
that's why I'm asking you, because I'm just like,
no.
She wants us to put our big girl panties on, so it's not Smith and Smith. It's harder than Smith and Smith.
Oh, all that stuff, I remember when I was asked, is this going to be real? I'm like, actually, this one is going to be real. It's not going to be strapping yourself, to a bomb and being blown out of a jet at the beginning of Mission Impossible. Now, I don't know anybody that does that. Okay. It's just like Hollywood.
That's so far-fetched.
So that's what Smith is. Yeah, yeah. No, I mean, I go to every one of them, but I laugh. I laugh a lot of times, and then people in the audience are like, what are you laughing about? Well, if you only knew. But yeah,
If you only knew, she'd
it's
kill you.
like, it's like, but yeah, you know, what you read is what it's really like. And it's dangerous enough. You don't have to, tie yourself to a bomb. It's bad enough, with the characters that you have to deal with, especially in the KGB.
I
Yeah.
think they overdo it, with these movies, like these spy movies, like James
Oh, yeah.
Bond and Mission Impossible. I'm just like,
All of them.
really? That's so far fetched. Like, really, that's not how it
Yeah.
would be. It would be
Yeah.
more of the stuff like you're saying, like like the hidden opera singer and that's right in your face that you don't realize the story and the stuff that she has to
Hmm.
hide. Get close to this. Was
Hmm.
that Dutch guy cute?
Oh, let me tell you, both the Dutch guy and the Clive Matthews character could have been male models. Yeah.
Ooh.
Hey, it
See,
always helps.
it
That's
helps
one
when
thing
they're nice
Hollywood gets
looking. It's
right.
easy on the eyes.
Absolutely. Because, sometimes they need to use that too. Yeah. When Caitlin meets the Clive Matthews fellow, it's right after the opera ball, and she's in all of her glory because she was the spotted singer that night, at the villa. And she sees him the first time in an Armani tux. Yeah.
I like a
And
man
just
in a
goes,
suit.
ha,
I'm just a woman that
me,
likes a man in a suit. So, are
me
you like
too.
that, Kate?
Oh yeah, even and a uniform. I'll go for a uniform. But yeah, when Caitlin sees him, she is just like, "How did I miss him all night?" Well, she finds out later because he was hiding from her. He was checking her out to see how she was doing. And he can be a
How
master of
you doing?
disguise, or he can just be invisible in a crowd of people. And I mean, because oh wow, yeah. So Caitlin's just like kind of blown over when she first sees him, and he's totally rude to her because he he doesn't want her to know who he is, and in that environment with all those Nazis everywhere, right? And so he's really rude to her and her agent, who was her escort. And she just thinks he's a major. Well, he might be cute, but like my grandma says, pretty is as pretty does.
My grandma
She's
said that
always
too.
got, yeah, she's always got these sayings. She said, "Well, my grandma said, or my mama said," and
My
that
mama told
cracks them
me.
up. And that cracks up the whole team. And then when they get into this kind of situation near the end, it's very close to the major climax of the mission, and they're in the Alps and they get into this whole blizzard thing, and all of them are a bunch of city slickers. They all grew up in Amsterdam, London. And here's Caitlin. Yeah, we're in for a big storm. Talking, and she starts talking about her pioneer stock. They went out there in the Midwest and the Great Plains and they made it. Well, they did. And so yeah, they, oh no, not another pioneer story. But she learned a lot growing up on the farm, and they would get snowed in. Caitlin's family would, so they had to survive. And so when they're all like, she's like, okay, we got to do this.
Get
We
the
got to
trouble.
do this. We got to do this. To get ready. Yeah. It's like, yeah, bunch out. Yeah, bunch of weenies. So it's snowing. We're still gonna go.
When you're a
It's
farm
like,
girl and you know how
yeah.
to shovel the snow, you know not to mess with that girl.
So yeah, but they all have their strengths so it's a concerted effort with two teams of CIA and MI6. She's of course CIA, and they all have their strengths and they all have their little personality quirks, but somehow it works together. It does work.
Okay, I want to get into
And she's
your
the only
team.
woman.
I want to get into your TK.
Okay.
And your tea
So,
that you gave me tonight was fighting for justice and peace. Tell me a little bit why you gave me that tea.
well, ever since I was a child, I always had this sense of, well, this has to be fair. This has to be fair, and so when I was a little kid, if something was happening in my classroom and I didn't think it was fair, I tried to fix that, whether it meant talking to the teacher or here, you can have my turn, or whatever, I always was very, very aware of that. And that was just a constant thing throughout my life. And then when I moved to New York City, I went to this really famous Chinese guru that reads your aura and reads your tea leaves and all this stuff. And I mean, presidents had went to this lady. So I felt really lucky that my friend Unit was able to get me in there because I just love that kind of stuff. And the first thing she said is, your karmic path is you try to right all wrongs. And by then, I'm like, oh, yeah. And so that has been a very common thread throughout my life. College sit downs, about the ERA. I mean, just whatever. Okay. And that's why when I got to Austria and I saw this situation, I had to help because these people were being so oppressed and there was nothing about fairness about it at all. And so, and in addition to that, I feel like I've always done what I could to, keep peace, or make peace. Now, that could be as much as like the big extended family to, world politics. So that's just seems to be my thing that keeps coming around. Sometimes I don't ask for it, but it still gets thrown in my lap. And then, oh, okay. So yeah. Recently, I had a big conservatory, and I was the main, I was the artistic director and main voice teacher, and I have an anti-bullying thing, a big campaign going with all the high schools and colleges I deal with. And so I've gotten very involved in that and been, a loud spokesman for that. And, because a lot of kids in performing arts, they're going to be a little different. And so there's a lot of protecting and a lot of teaching kids to embrace change and to stand up for themselves.
And that's something that we haven't ever talked about on Tea Time is the performing arts, the bullying. There's got to be a lot of that in the background, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's still where I'm at in the Midwest. It's still, if you're a jock or you're a cheerleader, that's fine, right? But if you're a male and you are feminine, or you're somewhere on that spectrum of gay or whatever, and you're very artistic, well, then that's somebody to, even though they could be fantastic. I was working at a high school where they were winning the International Thespian Festival every year for their musicals. So these kids go on to great college programs and become professionals. It's one of the best departments in musical theater for high school in the country. Okay. And yet those kids, when they were out of our group, and had to go to math or whatever in the hall, they could be very bullied by the jocks, let's say. Yeah. That still goes on all the time, constantly. I had one boy I was very close to who played football for 2 years and decided it wasn't for him and came to our department. And he was getting beat up.
Wow.
Because he had stopped playing football. Yeah.
The peer pressure that the peer pressure that people, it's right in our face. It's almost like your story, right? That opera singer, it's right in your face,
Mm-hmm.
and no one does anything about it.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like human trafficking.
I mean,
it's right in our face, and we don't do anything about it.
Exactly. Exactly. And that's probably my main focus. Well, right now, because of the world politics, my book is so relevant in so many ways. And you have to understand, Putin was a KGB officer in Germany during this book. Okay, so kind of put that in your pipe and smoke it for a second, you know. And oh, where's one of our worst human trafficking situations right now? Oh, well, Ukraine. And well, who started that? Well, there you go. People never change, you know.
Right.
He's just one big bully, just one big bully, and always has been since he was way back in East Germany, you know. And you put someone with power like that, and you see what happens. So, my book has so many connections of what's going on right now, whether it be with human trafficking or politics, you know. And so it's kind of sad, you know. This mission works and the wall comes down and USSR seems to be going down, right? But we were all celebrating and I was over there and, you know, we were having pieces of the wall. Whoa, 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 you know, and we had this big party and all of a sudden this man, this older British man, he's just sitting there and he's just drinking his tea and eating his food. And I'm like, he's not really celebrating. So I sit down beside him. I go, aren't you happy? And he's like, I'm happy, but they'll be back. In your lifetime, all this will be much worse. And
Wow.
I didn't want to believe that, obviously. I mean, you know, the wall was coming down in 89, but look at where we are now.
Yeah.
He was
Look where we are now.
exactly correct. Yeah,
We're
he was
repeating
exactly
history.
correct.
It's so scary how much we're repeating history
Mhm.
because we learn from history.
Yeah. And then we have so many neo-Nazi characters in this book. And the same thing goes, you know. My father fought in World War II and afterwards went ahead and reassigned himself for 3 more years. He ended up having to clean up the Dachau camp, you know, concentration camp. And then in 1987, I'm over there going to graduate school, being an apprentice, and I have Austrian people, my peers, telling me the Holocaust never happened.
Wow.
And way back then, what do you think they're saying now? You know, so yeah, it was just the Americans trying to keep the Germans down. They made those you know, memorials. They made it up. You know, it's all fake.
Yeah.
You know, I'm sitting there and I'm trying to bite my tongue because remember I'm the, you know, and I'm going, whoa, you know, and yeah, and you know, and remembering the pictures my father actually took while they were cleaning up Dachau.
Wow.
I believe my dad. I believe my dad.
The pictures are the proof.
The pictures are the proof. He didn't fake them.
You can't erase history when there's pictures, when there's evidence, when there's people who have died. You cannot just erase it like it never happened. You know, it's so frustrating to see people erasing it or distracting us with nonsense so that we don't speak of the history.
Yeah. Yeah. They're trying to rewrite it. And you know, another experience I had in my lifetime when I was living in New York City is I lived in Bayside, Queens, and it has a very, very large older Jewish population. And there's by my house, there was a really tall, you know, high rise for retired Jewish people. And so sometimes I would go and, you know, just volunteer, you know, to sing. They had like a cabaret theater. So sometimes I just go down there and sing some cabaret stuff. And I met so many, particularly women, you know, they live a little longer, you know, they were very elderly, but, you know, they had the numbers that, you know, I interviewed these people. They're real.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can't erase real people. Like, you know,
No.
you can't erase the story either of a Mission Saw because you got to read the book. You got to put your big girl panties on, and you got to check out those Dutch guys. Like I'm telling you, if she says they're worth checking out. Check them out.
Yeah, she describes them really well. Yeah, and there's like this whole little triangle thing that, there is a dash of real romance in this thing, but I'm not going to give
Oh,
it away. Yeah.
you
And
gotta
you
read the
wonder,
book.
is anything going to happen or is it not going to happen? Yeah. But
Oh, it's one of plot twisters. Is it this way or is it this way?
oh yeah, there's
Yeah,
lots of plot twists in this baby. Right when you think you know what's going to happen, something else will happen.
there's a
And you'll go,
twist, guys. It's
whoa,
a spy
didn't see
thriller.
that. Yeah, didn't see that coming. Yeah. There's a little bit of everything, as far as what might happen in a mission like that. Remember, everything is real. So,
I really like the cover. I like the cover. I like the name. I like the word thaw because you're breaking ice. It's like it's thawing away.
yeah,
And you just never know what's under the ice. And I say that about people, right? When we break the ice, break that iceberg between a person and a conversation. You just never know what you're going to find or who you're going to meet by just having that open conversation like we're having today. I didn't know that I was getting down this road with Kay. But you know what? I like Kate. I like she speaks it like it is, man. That's the way I like it. So Kay,
that's the only way I know how to do it,
I have a question for you, Kay. What is the difference between opera and sacred music?
Okay, yeah, that a lot of people have asked that question. Okay, so they're the kind that I do are both in the realm of classical music, obviously. Okay. So when you're training as an opera singer, you're also going to be learning the roles of oratorials as well. Now, one that I will cite for you all is one you might have heard, at least, is around Christmas time. They'll do the Messiah, Handel's Messiah. They'll do concerts of that. And the only difference, you still have to be a very virtuosic singer with lots of training. And so the difference is in opera, you have a stage with sets, humongous sets, 3-story sets usually, lavish costumes. You have a blocking where you're acting it as you sing, you're moving, you're whatever, you're doing. And opera is sung all the way through. There isn't spoken dialect in most operas. Okay. So, and they're going to do it in the vernacular. So if Mozart wrote it in Italian, it'll probably be in Italian. And if, if if Gounod wrote it in French, I was thinking artist, not composer. If Gounod wrote it in French, you're going to sing it in French. Okay. So, that's opera. Okay. And that's memorized. Everybody has to be memorized on the stage. Okay. Because they're playing the character. Oratorio is still classical music, but it's going to have the orchestra, just like opera. And it's going to have the big chorus, but the chorus is just going to be standing behind because it's concert version. And then your soloists are going to be in front of the chorus. And sometimes the chorus is going to sing, and sometimes the soloists are going to sing duets, trios, whatever. And those oratorials are always from stories of the Bible. And the reason they exist is because most composers had to write for the church or they starved back then. Okay. So they couldn't just write operas. They had to write for the church also. And so
I got a ghost in my room. My lights are going off.
I think so. I noticed that. So I was like, woo, poltergeist.
Phantom of the Opera is in my house.
Yeah. I just talked to someone on NPR about Phantom of the Opera, and I was just thinking, yeah, she's got a phantom. How about that?
I swear, guys, I didn't do anything. I'm just sitting here. I'm just like, okay, what's going on?
But anyway, so that's the difference. So you're going to do oratorio, maybe in a concert hall. You might do it in a big cathedral, but almost all opera singers I know, also do a lot of cathedral singing, So it doesn't have to be this great big lavish oratorio. I put out a sacred CD a long time ago, just of, things that would be sung in church for different times of the year and that kind of thing. And so, it helps to be, as an opera singer, you have to be flexible. I also still sing some Broadway roles. So, when the opera role isn't coming, go look for another gig. So that's why I sacred sing. But the most important thing about my sacred singing is I became the 9/11 funeral for New York City and for the Catholic Diocese. I sang a great deal of the the Catholic funeral masses and what we'd call memorial masses, because there wasn't a body. I did that for months after 9/11 for all the fallen service people. So probably more famous for that and a lot of things, for that period of time. So I had all the box to check. I knew how to be a Catholic cantor. I had a very strong voice because there's going to be 2 of these funerals a day a lot of the time. And so I was recruited, for a lot of different reasons by the mayor's and the governor's office to do those. So yeah, it's a good thing that I had, talk about preservation. It's a good thing I had all that background and I could say yes. And they did ask me because opera closed down, Broadway closed down. So if I hadn't had those gigs, who knows what would happen to me. And also I was invited to do these big rallies they were having. You probably saw some of those on TV, like in Yankee Stadium and that kind of thing.
And we're back.
Yeah, I lost you again there for a second.
It's the Phantom. The Phantom is in my house.
The Phantom of the Opera, right? Stop it! Leave her alone.
On tea time, I'm telling you. I was just like, what's going on with my lights in my room? So, Kay, you mentioned CDs, music. So, is there CDs out there that people can find that you have out there?
Well, Lord, they were a few million years ago. So no, everything's went out of, print and that kind of thing, that I did back then. I mean, I just had my 66th birthday. So it's been a while, since those came out.
You don't look that age, girl. You look good.
Well, thank you, honey. But, do the math. I was around in 87 as a graduate student. So, no, I am that old. And so, no, there's nothing that you can get now. But I did, I did a sacred one in New York City. I did some stuff in Germany, some German opera things. I was in some videos, that kind of thing, like, well, how like, are you back?
Yep, I'm back. I can hear you.
Okay. How our PBS will do Live at the Met or something like that. Well, BBC has that in the UK, and then Germany has Deutsche Grammophon that would do that. And so all those, but it's pretty hard to find after all these years. I mean, obviously I'm not a superstar like Pavarotti, so they don't keep renewing my, contract. It's kind of like books. How they.
Hey, you mentioned that the opera houses and the Broadways are starting to close down, and you mentioned the name Godot. They have a big Broadway show going on in New York City. Is it coming back? Do you think Broadway's coming back and opera's coming back slowly?
Well, Broadway's back big time. The problem with opera is it got 2 hits. It got 9/11, and then it was the pandemic, and both times closed them down, and the cost is just every production, like at the Met, is just millions and millions and millions of dollars. It's like Hollywood. And the problem is, there's fewer and fewer people, especially in the States, that want to pay those prices and buy, season tickets to the Met. That's going to put you back like $800 a seat, for the season, every show, and or more. I mean, the galas are crazy. It's like $10,000 or something. And so, as those people that had that as a culture start to pass away, the younger generations aren't replacing them. That's not where your typical young billionaire is going to be, is at the Met. And so the culture is changing, and the opera world, I think, is getting smaller, and the opportunities are getting less. And there's been a real movement to try to change that, but I'm not sure in this what I'll call pop culture that's going to be sustainable in the future. I'm worried about that. And the same thing's happening with Europe and UK and anywhere where opera is at. I know the Sydney Opera House is doing more and more non-opera things in the Sydney Opera House, So yeah, I think that's in trouble. Whereas Broadway has just taken a boom, and everything is definitely, I would say, since I've been here with my conservatory, almost 98% of the kids came to be trained as Broadway singers, not opera.
Oh, wow.
And they've done really well. And not to say you have to be very virtuosic to be singing these things they're writing now. The ranges are very similar to opera, and sometimes yet, the singer has to belt that note rather than, just a regular natural production of tone. And so it can be even, and the competition is incredible. Just to get in a college program in musical theater is very hard to do, let alone a graduate program, let alone an apprentice, let alone get your equity card. It's tough.
Okay, my computer is going to do a restart, so let's get your information out there before it shuts down. How can people reach you and all that good stuff?
Okay, ksparlingbooks.com. And that is a huge website. It has all the places you can buy the book. It has editorial reviews. It has all kinds of podcast links. It has my song. It has a little bit of everything just packed in there. Everything you could possibly want to know about the book and how to get it, just go to ksparlingbooks.com.
Okay, are you still here? Well, Kay, are you still there? Did I get you back, Kay?
Yeah.
Awesome. See, I just slide back in. I don't care. This computer, man, I don't know what's going on. Lights are going off, computer's going off. I'm just like, no, wait a minute. Yeah. Okay, if we get it out there again, let's get your book out there. and your final message and all that good stuff. We're still rolling. We're still got it here. We might have lost the Instagram live stream, but you know what? We're still here and we're still rolling on Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. So let's get that out there for everybody.
Okay.
Did I lose you?
I'm here.
Oh, okay. So, Kay, get out your information one more time. If we're
Oh,
I got you, girl.
we lost you again.
Oh, am I back now?
Yeah, you are back now, but almost immediately you went away the last time you came on.
The ghosts in this house are playing tricks on you. Go ahead, sweetheart. Get your information out there one more time for your books and all of that good stuff, and then I'll do a closing summary. Oh, and I think we're both freezing up once and again. Well, for everybody that has joined Tea Time tonight, we had an awesome show. Kate shared her incredible book, so be sure to check out the Mission Thaw book. You can get that and check it out on her website at ksparlingbooks.com. And we're just going to do a closing summary of what we talked about tonight. So, what an unforgettable tea time we've shared with Kay Sparling tonight. Through her music, Kay has carried memories and meaning to audience for decades. And with her novel, Mission Thaw, a spy thriller, she's shown us yet again that creativity has no boundaries and no expiration date. Her journey reminds us that each of us carries stories worth sharing, whether sung, spoken, or written on that page. As you leave the table this evening, let Kay's story inspire you to embrace the many chapters of your own life, to find your voice, to tell your story, and to never stop creating. Thank you, Kay, for pouring your heart, your songs, and your thrilling imagination into tonight's tea time. And to everyone listening, may you go forward carrying your own melody and keep planting hope one cup at a time until we meet again. And like I said, we have some Phantom of the Opera going on in the house. We have some lights going off, laptops going off. We have some incredible stuff going on tonight on Tea Time, but I want to thank everybody for tuning in, to all the listeners out there. We had fun. Check this Tea Time out, and I will see you guys same time, same place on Thursday, and we'll do it all over again. Until then, stay true and keep serving your real tea to the world. Thank you, guys.